Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. I wish to voice my support for House Bill 5345, the No Guns in Schools, and my opposition to the three bills that would lower the bar on the concealed carry permits, 5729, 6039, and 6040. And I'm not going to speak to those. I think the Assistant Attorney General did an excellent job in explaining why the Attorney General's position is to keep the law the way it is now. So I'd like to speak particularly about the No Guns in Schools. We already have a law in the state that there are no guns in schools. There is another law that deals with concealed carry permits. That law has exemptions in it for where a concealed carry permit cannot be carried, and there are places like courthouses, government buildings, airports in the state of Rhode Island. Those exemptions were put in, I believe, in 1990. At that time, it was before there were problems with guns in schools, so no one thought of exempting schools in that law, the concealed carry law. So it's two different pieces of legislation or two different restrictions. One is there are no guns in schools, but the concealed carry permit law allows guns to be carried anywhere except for places that are listed. Schools are not listed. It's only K-12 schools. There are people have been bringing up colleges. Colleges are not in the legislation. It's K through 12 only. I think that if the legislature felt that it was important to exempt airports and other government buildings, that schools should be in that same category, and that school children, teachers, and school personnel should be in a safe environment where there are only people the only armed people are people in law enforcement who have been trained not just in how to use a weapon, but also trained in what you do when a shooter comes into a building and there's a crisis situation. I live in Woonsocket. The Woonsocket School Committee has passed a resolution in support of this legislation for the last 3 years, as have many other school committees in the state. There are only 8 states that allow concealed carry permit holders to have guns in schools, and I'd also like to call your attention to the fact that there is a law making its way through Congress that may pass and will be signed by the President that allows for reciprocity. You have 3 bills you're considering about reciprocity. If any of those were to pass, that opens up hundreds of thousands of other people. You heard how many concealed carry permits there are just in Connecticut and Massachusetts. That means all of those folks, or anyone from any other state, would be able to carry in Rhode Island. They would have to obey our laws, but as the law currently stands, they would be able to carry that concealed carry gun into a school in Rhode Island unless you pass this law. I know that there's been a lot of argument tonight about the hero that's going to save the day. I'm a retired school teacher. I worked in a school in Rhode Island high school for 27 years, and the last 10 years or so, we were all trained in what you do if there's a shooter in the school. And what you do is you are trained to get all of the kids into your classroom, into closets, away from windows, away from doors, get them to remain perfectly silent and not to go out into a hallway or leave the classroom for any reason until a police officer, comes to the door and says it's safe to leave. One of the main reasons that you're trained not to go into a hallway or to allow any kid to go into the hallway is that student or school personnel could be caught in crossfire when trained police are there and are going to shoot anybody who happens to be around with a gun, even if that person happens to be a parent or somebody who happens to be there who is a concealed carry permit carrier. So, in conclusion, I believe that allowing only trained law enforcement officers to have guns in schools puts our children in a safer situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman Benoit. For those who don't remember, Nancy Benoit was a member of the House of Representatives and was chair of the Health, Education, and Welfare Committee.